Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. Close your eyes for a moment, yes, right now, and picture the woman you married or the one you hope to marry someday. See her laughing across the dinner table, hair a little messy from chasing the kids or from dancing in the kitchen to that song you both pretended to hate in college. Now freeze the frame, hold her smile in your mind. Ask yourself this in that moment: does she feel fully seen or merely observed? Does she feel chosen or simply checked off a list? And here is the uncomfortable truth that wakes men up at 2 a.m. with a start. The woman who once looked at you as if you were the only man in the room can, almost imperceptibly, begin to look through you. Unless you understand why the space beside her becomes an open invitation for attention she no longer believes you are willing to give. Most men assume a ring is a finish line. Women experience it as a starting line for a subtler race, one where the prize is not security but aliveness. When aliveness fades inside the marriage, it does not evaporate, it leaks quietly into the glance of a colleague who asks about her day and waits for the answer, into the barista who remembers that she likes oat milk, not almond. These are not calculated seductions. They are mirrors reflecting back a version of herself she feared had gone missing. And because most husbands are taught to protect rather than pursue, the gap widens until the woman who once blushed at your text now blushes at someone else's. This is not a cautionary tale designed to shame you. It is a love letter written in reverse, urging you to reclaim the woman you still want, because the very thing that makes her easy prey is the same thing that makes her deeply loyal when met with curiosity instead of assumption, with playfulness instead of possession. In the next few minutes we will walk together through the invisible crossroads where attention turns into tension, and where your small, deliberate gestures can rewrite the story before another man offers to hold the pen. Imagine you are driving home after a day that felt longer than the minutes it actually took. The engine hums, the radio murmurs something you're not really hearing, and in your chest there is the familiar weight of wanting to be the hero your wife still believes in. You open the door, she looks up from the sink or the couch or the laptop, and that flicker of recognition passes across her face. Not disappointment, not joy, just a gentle flattening. The way a candle flame steadies when you cover it with your palm. In that ordinary second you have already answered the question she has stopped asking. Will today be the day he sees me again? Most of us miss the question because we are busy proving we are providers, problem solvers, pillars. We measure love in mortgage payments and school runs, forgetting that a woman measures it in pupils that widen when she enters the room, in the sudden hush that falls over her own body, when she feels she has become the most interesting thing in your orbit. Marriage, for many women, begins as a grand duet and slowly turns into background music. She keeps singing, but no one turns the volume knob to meet her crescendo. When the soundtrack of her desirability fades, the world outside the window begins to pulse louder. The casual, "You look great today," from the gym trainer, the lingering eye contact from a divorced dad at the parent-teacher conference. None of these people necessarily intend harm. They are simply offering reflections she no longer finds at home. And because a woman's erotic mind is nourished by being witnessed, each small reflection lands like water on parched soil. Here is the first point I want you to hold gently. Attention is not the same as recognition. Attention can be bought with a compliment. Recognition is slower. It is the deliberate choice to meet her in the place she is evolving right now, not the place where you met her 5 or 15 years ago. You can tell the difference by the way her shoulders drop when you ask, "What was the best part of your day?" and then stay to hear the color of her answer. Recognition is the pause you take when she is folding laundry and you notice the tiny new wrinkle of worry between her brows and say, "Something's on your mind, love. I can feel it from across the room." That pause costs you 30 seconds. It gives her the reassurance that she is still legible to you. Most married women do not wake up plotting escape. They wake up tired of translating themselves into smaller fonts so the marriage can fit on a single page. Over time, the page becomes a contract. I will do my part, you will do yours. We will keep the children alive and the lawn mowed. The erotic, meanwhile, the playful, electric charge that once made grocery shopping feel like foreplay, gets filed under things we used to have time for. And because erotic energy does not die, it looks for a socket. If the socket is not between the two of you, it will be the attentive listener at work who notices she changed her hair, the neighbor who asks for her opinion on a book. These men do not promise forever. They promise now. Now feels intoxicating when forever has begun to feel like furniture. The second point is this: novelty is not the enemy of commitment. Neglect of curiosity is. You do not need zip lines through Costa Rica to rekindle desire. You need microdoses of curiosity. "What made you laugh today?" asked with the same tone you once used to ask, "What are you wearing under that dress?" Both questions invite revelation. Both say, "I am still studying you." When curiosity fades, novelty becomes a substitute instead of a supplement. Another man's curiosity feels like sunrise to a woman who has been living under fluorescent lights. let me offer you a small, practical ritual that costs nothing and changes everything. Tonight, after the dishes are done or left in the sink, dishes forgive, set a timer for 10 minutes. Sit across from her, knees almost touching, phones in another room. Ask one question that cannot be answered with yes or no. Tell me about a moment today when you felt most like yourself. Then stay silent, not the dutiful silence of a man waiting his turn to speak, but the reverent silence of a man who understands that his wife's sentences are doorways and he has just been invited inside. When she finishes, do not fix advice or compare, simply nod, let your eyes soften, and say, I love hearing the way your mind works. That single sentence, delivered without agenda, is the emotional equivalent of slipping your hand under her hair and kissing the back of her neck in the middle of a crowded room. It tells her she is still the plot twist you never saw coming. We are not finished yet. We have merely opened the door. In the next breath, we will walk further down the corridor and look at the precise moments when a woman decides the story of her marriage is already written, and how you can quietly slip her the pen so she begins editing in your favor. There is a moment, usually on an idle Tuesday, when she walks past the hallway mirror and catches her own reflection by surprise. The angle is unforgiving daylight, no makeup, hair twisted up in a knot that used to look tousled and now looks tired. A flicker of something, panic, grief, crosses her face so quickly she almost convinces herself she imagined it. But the body remembers. The body keeps score, and the score reads, I am still here, but I am less seen than yesterday. Most husbands never witness that millisecond of reckoning because they are not invited to. She edits it out the way she edits out the impulse to cry at commercials about puppies. She carries on dinner homework, the soft clinking of life. Yet the moment lodges itself like a splinter just beneath the surface of every future interaction. When you ask, how was your day? And she answers, fine. The word is weighted with that mirror's verdict. Fine means I swallowed something I do not know how to name. The unspoken contract of marriage often reads like this: I will keep everything running. You will keep everything safe. Safety is a beautiful promise. But safety alone is a dimly lit room. Desire needs contrast, shadow, a little danger. Not danger of harm, danger of discovery. The danger that comes from being known more deeply than the day before. When that danger disappears, the contract becomes a cage with very polite wardens. She begins to walk the perimeter quietly, testing for loose bars. Enter the accidental seducer. He is rarely the villain of a thriller. More often he is the divorced dad at the school fundraiser who offers to carry her tray because his own hands are free. He asks a question whose subtext is curiosity rather than courtesy. You always seem to know exactly what your kid needs. How did you learn to read him so well? The question lands softly but directly on the bruise of her invisibility. She feels the warmth of being studied, not for what she produces, lunches, permission slips, orgasms on birthdays, but for who she is becoming. The accidental seducer does not need to be handsome, he needs to be present. Presence is the rarest currency in a long marriage. Now, let us be precise. The accidental seducer does not create the longing, he simply names it. His timing is impeccable because her longing has already reached a tipping point where any reflection feels like rescue. The danger for you, the husband, is not that she will leap into someone else's arms tonight. The danger is that she will begin rehearsing the leap in her imagination. Imagination is rehearsal space. What begins as a harmless scene, what if I said yes to coffee, can harden into a script she recites to herself while brushing her teeth. The script rarely starts with ripping clothes. It starts with the simpler line, noticed, 2 syllables that hollow out decades of shared history. So what can you do before the rehearsal becomes a performance? You learn to become bilingual in the language of your own marriage again. The first dialect is logistics, who picks up the prescription whether the car needs an oil change. The second dialect is longing. Most couples stop speaking longing once the diapers arrive or the promotion arrives, as if desire were a phase rather than a pulse. Re-entering the dialect of longing requires that you risk sounding foolish. Try saying out loud, I had a dream about you last night and woke up wanting to cancel the entire day to finish it. Say it while she is slicing cucumbers. The sentence is absurd, vulnerable, and, if delivered with a half smile, irresistible. It breaks the contract of predictable exchange and reintroduces mystery. You are still dreaming about her, which means she is still unknown territory. Another small, actionable step: schedule the mundane together. Grocery shopping, oil change, whatever Saturday errand usually divides you. But add one rule: during the errand you are forbidden to talk about the errand. Instead, interview each other as if you are on a first date that just happens to involve shopping carts. Ask the kinds of questions you asked when you were 25 and the stakes were sky high. What's a memory that still makes you cringe? If you could wake up tomorrow with a new talent, what would it be? The fluorescent lights of the supermarket become stage lights. The woman pushing the cart beside you remembers what it feels like to be the leading lady. Finally, reintroduce asymmetry. Long marriages calcify around symmetry. We split, we share, we trade. Desire, however, thrives on asymmetry, the unexpected gesture that cannot be immediately reciprocated because it is not a transaction. Send her a voice note in the middle of the workday, nothing urgent. Just the sound of you walking past the bakery where you bought her that almond croissant she loved when she was pregnant and nauseous and everything tasted like metal. Say, the smell just punched me in the heart. I stood outside like an idiot grinning at the window because I remembered the way you closed your eyes when you took the first bite. Then hang up, no request, no follow-up text. The voice note is a gift, not a bid. It creates a small imbalance of attention that tilts the emotional field toward wonder. She will replay that message more times than she admits, and each replay is a stitch pulling the frayed fabric a little tighter. And while she is listening, the accidental seducer at the office loses a fraction of his shine because the mirror she really wants to gaze into is once again in your pocket, in your voice, in the way you refuse to let the story of her become yesterday's news. We will keep walking deeper into the subtle choreography of attention, where a woman decides whether the door to her inner life stays cracked open or quietly swings towards someone else's hallway. There is a Tuesday. Again a Tuesday, because the heartbreaks of marriage rarely choose cinematic Fridays, when she stands in the elevator at work and the aftershave of a colleague brushes past her like an accidental confession. Nothing has happened, no hands, no promises, only scent and proximity, yet the synapses in her body fire in a sequence they have not used in months' notice. Imagine, compare. The comparison lasts less than 3 seconds, but it lodges under the ribcage like a small ticking. On the drive home she glances at you in the passenger seat, eyes on your phone, thumb scrolling sports scores, and the ticking grows louder. She is not weighing penis size or paycheck, she is weighing aliveness. The colleague does not know her social security number, her recurring nightmare about the baby's fever, the way she likes her coffee cooled to exactly the right temperature, but he does know, at least for the length of an elevator ride, that she exists in 3 dimensions. You, who once mapped the freckles on her shoulders like constellations, have started addressing her as if she were a comfortable armchair, reliable, present, slightly faded. Comparison is not infidelity. It is a diagnostic tool. The mind scans for evidence that desire still circulates. If the scan returns empty often enough, she begins to rewrite her internal monologue. The new script sounds like resignation disguised as contentment. We'll have a good life, she tells herself, stressing the word good the way one stresses a sprained ankle, protectively, to avoid further pain. Underneath the sentence is the quieter one she does not utter, but I am not the heroine of this story anymore. Here is the tender, brutal truth. A woman does not leave because someone else is better. She leaves because someone else is curious. Curiosity is the antidote to erasure. Curiosity says, I don't yet know the color of your thoughts today. You can reintroduce curiosity without booking a surprise trip to Paris. Begin with the smallest unit of mystery, your own interior life. Instead of reporting the facts of your day, report the weather of your inner world. I had a meeting that bored me so much I started counting ceiling tiles and wondering how many more Mondays I can trade for a mortgage. Suddenly you are not the man she has catalogued. You are a stranger holding a map she wants to read. Another practical ritual, the 60-second mirror. Pick any mirror in the house. Stand behind her while she is brushing her teeth or applying moisturizer. Place your hands on her hips, not to initiate sex, but to locate her in space. Look at the reflection of both of you and say nothing for 1 full minute. Let the silence stretch until it becomes intimate, not awkward. Then speak softly, as if the mirror were a confidant. I still can't believe I get to stand here. The sentence is short, slightly absurd, and devastatingly effective. It interrupts the comparison loop because it positions her back inside the original story, the one where you are both protagonists still discovering plot twists. Notice too the erotic power of partial disclosure. When you recount your day, leave one small detail deliberately unfinished, a loose thread she can tug. I walked past that old record store and something happened that made me think of you, but I'll tell you later when the kids aren't screaming. The unfinished detail becomes a tiny hook in her imagination. She will circle back to it, not because she is nosy, but because the brain hates open loops. Each time she returns to the loop, she is returning to you. Finally, protect the rituals of micro-awe. Awe is the cousin of desire. Both require that the world momentarily expand beyond the predictable. Buy a single ridiculous flower on the way home, a bird of paradise, a sunflower the size of her face, and hand it over without ceremony. When she asks why, shrug, because the color made me think of your laugh. And I wanted to be the man who carries laughter home in his hand. The sentence is over the top, yes, but marriage needs occasional excess the way bread needs salt. Without it, everything tastes like obligation. She will place the flower in water, and every time she passes it, making lunches, answering emails, the color will remind her that you are still capable of being startled by her. And when the colleague steps into the elevator again, his aftershave will still register, but it will register as a cheap cologne against the memory of a sunflower. The comparison scale will tilt, almost imperceptibly, back toward the man who still chooses to astonish her. We are not done. The story is still unfolding, and the next chapter begins with the words she has not yet said aloud. She She keeps a second voice, one that never clears its throat during dinner. It lives in the notes app of her phone, in the unsent text drafts addressed to no one, sometimes even to you. It says things like, I miss the version of me that used to dance on tables, or today I felt beautiful for 3 whole minutes, and then the baby wiped oatmeal on my shirt. She doesn't send these lines because she's learned, slowly, that urgency in her mouth often lands as complaint in your ears, so the sentences stay curled inside her like dormant seeds waiting for the right climate. Most husbands sense the humidity, something unspoken thickens the air, but they reach for the wrong tools, solutions, jokes, a quick kiss that lands on the cheek like a receipt. None of these open the seed. The climate she waits for is emotional permission. Permission to be contradictory, to want stability and adventure in the same breath, to admit that sometimes she fantasizes about checking into a hotel alone just to hear herself think. When she finally risks one small confession, I feel like I'm disappearing, and you respond with panic or platitudes, the seed retreats deeper. But if you answer with curiosity, tell me the texture of that disappearing. Is it fast like smoke or slow like fog? The seed cracks open. Curiosity is water and sunlight at once. Here is a practice I call the 9 p.m. postcard. Every night for 1 week, you each write one sentence on a shared notepad placed on the pillow. No context, no follow-up conversation required. She might write, the smell of rain made me homesick for a place I can't name. You might write, I watched our daughter's eyelashes on her cheek and understood why you cry at sleeping children. The next morning you read, you absorb, and you say nothing aloud. The silence is part of the spell. It tells her the sentence was received without invoice. By Friday, the notepad holds 7 tiny windows into each other's hidden weather. Without speeches or counseling jargon, you have created a clandestine correspondence inside your own marriage. Another doorway is the retelling of memory with new emphasis. Choose one early story you both own, the night you met, the disastrous camping trip, whatever sits in your shared mythology. Retell it from her point of view, not yours. I imagine you saw me lugging that cooler and thought, this man has no idea I hate blueberry muffins. The shift in perspective tells her you are still trying to inhabit her skin. It also corrects the slow calcification that happens to every love story. The version that solidifies into the way it was. Reauthoring the memory loosens the cement and invites her to add details you never noticed. How she almost didn't come that night. How she wore uncomfortable shoes and blamed you for the blisters. How she loved the blisters because they proved she had chosen adventure. You will know the climate is changing when she begins to laugh at your jokes again. Not the polite marital chuckle, but the helpless kind that buckles her knees and makes mascara migrate. Laughter is the body's confession that it no longer feels policed. Guard that laughter the way you once guarded her phone number folded in your wallet. When it appears, do not press for encore. Simply note the coordinates, what time of day, what level of tired, which topic loosened the valve. These are the cartography of re-entry. Memorize them. One more ritual, deceptively simple. Once a week, leave her a voicemail at an unpredictable hour. Speak as if you are narrating a dream you just woke from. I'm walking past the park where we pushed the stroller last spring, and the same old man is still feeding pigeons, and I swear one of them has your stubborn chin. The voicemail should last no longer than 20 seconds. Short enough to replay, strange enough to haunt. Each time she listens, she steps out of the role of logistics coordinator and steps into the role of muse. Muse is a position that pays no salary yet yields infinite returns. If you do these things with sincerity rather than strategy, you will notice a softening. She will start sentences and let them dangle, trusting you to finish them with interest rather than solution. She will leave her phone face down more often, not because she is hiding less, but because the urgency to be witnessed elsewhere has diminished. The colleague in the elevator will still smell nice, but the scent will no longer feel like an evacuation route. It will feel like someone else's story she no longer needs to audition for. And the seeds she once saved for strangers will begin to sprout in the soil between you, green and irrepressible. There is a hush that arrives after confession, the same hush that settles between lightning and thunder. You have listened to the words she had not said. You have watered them with curiosity, and now they rest in the air like newly washed sheets. The question becomes, how do you keep them from mildewing back into silence? The answer is smaller than most men think, and infinitely larger. The answer is daily election. Not the grand, cinematic vow renewal on a beach in linen shirts, though that can be delicious, but the almost invisible moment choice to re-elect each other into office. Every morning you wake up and cast a ballot. Her name, still, her name again, and she does the same. You will feel the shift in the ordinary choreography of the kitchen. She is buttering toast, you are rinsing a cup. Instead of the usual parallel play, you step behind her, slide your arms around her waist, and instead of the habitual squeeze that lasts 2 Mississippis, you hold for 7. 1 Mississippi for each year you almost stop noticing. At 7, she exhale is the sound of a woman being re-elected. Do this often enough and the kitchen becomes a polling station where desire, not duty, wins the popular vote. Another practice, the 3% shift. Think of your marriage as a ship that has drifted 2 degrees off course. A 3% course correction does not require burning the map. It simply requires adjusting the wheel a few inches every day. The 3% shift might look like this. When you reach for your phone to scroll during the ad break, you reach for her hand instead. Not a dramatic gesture, your thumb can still swipe, but the back of her hand is now the trackpad. 2 minutes later, the show resumes, but her nervous system has registered continuity instead of abandonment. Multiply that 3% shift across a month, and you have rerouted the entire vessel without ever declaring mutiny. Notice the difference between maintenance and seduction. Maintenance says, "Did you call the plumber?" Seduction says, "I was thinking about your collarbone during the budget meeting." Both sentences belong in a marriage, but only one keeps the erotic pulse breathing. Alternate them consciously. If you lean too far into logistics, you become co-employees. Too far into seduction without attending the broken faucet, and you become entertainment. Rhythm is the secret question. Complement, task, flirtation, silence. Let the rhythm mimic the way her own heart speeds and slows depending on whether she is climbing stairs or listening to a lullaby. Create a shared secret that belongs only to the two of you, updated weekly. A code word for the in-laws drama, a tiny hand signal that means rescue me at social gatherings, a Spotify playlist titled with an inside joke no one else would understand. Secrets are glue that looks like mischief. They remind you both that there is still a door you can close against the world and lock from the inside. Whisper the new secret to her while you are brushing your teeth. Foamy mouths, ridiculous and intimate. She will laugh, spit, rinse and carry the laughter into her dreams. One last image to carry home. Picture your marriage as a fire you did not start but were handed. The flames are not yours to own. They are yours to tend. Some nights you will add logs, some nights only twigs, some nights you will simply sit and watch the embers glow. The fire will not rage forever at honeymoon height. That would burn the forest down, but it can smolder steady and warm, throwing sparks at the exact moments when the wind shifts. Your job is to notice the wind. Your job is to keep the matches dry. And when she walks toward you across the living room, barefoot, hair still damp from the shower, the light of the fire on her skin will look like the original Yes all over again. So here is the quiet revolution. Stop trying to be the hero who slays dragons for her. Be the man who places a chair by the fire and says, "Sit, warm your hands, tell me the next sentence of your story." And when she sits, when she speaks, when she finally rests her head against your shoulder, you will feel the soft thump of her heartbeat syncing with yours. That thump is the sound of a woman who was once easy prey becoming once more impossible to lose.